So we are here to discuss how you can work with product management and engineering to build a successful partnership when you are shipping a machine learning as a service solution. Now, AI as a service or ML as a service, it has grown with 50% growth rate. It's going to become a $30 billion industry by 2025. And that's why it's really exciting for you to be working in machine learning as a service. So I'll start a little bit about me. So I'm a senior product manager at AWS AI ML. I work on Amazon Forecast, which is, again, a machine learning as a service for forecasting. Customers can bring in their historical time series data, and then we create a custom model for each input, and then customers can keep generating forecasts. So a lot of the tips that I'm giving today are going to be from my work on working as a machine learning as a service solution. But in the past, I've also worked on search and productivity, autonomous robotic, VC investing. I worked with data scientists, research scientists, applied scientists. I started a mental health startup in India a couple of years back. And on my personal side, I am raising a COVID puppy. Her name is Imli, and she's 8 months old. So I know we've lost some time, so I'm going to go a little quick, but I will leave some time for question and answers. So why work in machine learning as a science, machine learning as a service? I think the biggest takeaway I want to give you is that a lot of customers are looking to buy services instead of build on their own because there is a dearth of science challenge. When you are working in ML as a service, you will see that not only do you get to work on a challenging problem, you also get to productionize or convert your work really quickly into something that customers will use. So let's go into some tips. I have 7 tips to leave you with when you're working in machine learning as a service and you have to collaborate with product management and engineering. And as any Amazon PM says, that you should work backwards from your customers. And it's really important because this might be a little new to you. A lot of times in research, you are working backwards from a theoretical or a problem that's a little bit more ideal. But in product development, you are now moving into working backwards from a customer. And I'll give you an example of where it did not work for our science team. For example, our science team was working on a new algorithm for 6 months. They'd been researching it. But when we looked at productionizing it, it was really not providing any extra value to customers, and we decided not to launch it. And you don't want that to happen to your research or your work. So ask your product managers to include you in customer meetings that are relevant to you. Listen to them. Customers love for science team to be involved in the conversations. And you might provide a lot of good solutions. In one of my projects, we were creating automated insights for our customers, and our science team was in that conversation. We were able to better clarify customer expectation. We were able to tell them more what we can add value to. And so when we went back to the drawing board, we came up with a completely different solution. And these customer conversations will also lead to innovation. I can tell you this one time when I filed a patent with 2 of my other female colleagues, it was an all-woman patent. This came directly from a customer conversation where customers told us that they want to add weather information while forecasting, and we created a one-click option to acquire the weather data, clean the weather data, and then feature engineer the weather data in a way that it will be more predictive. The second tip is around getting a seat on the table. So in product development, usually PMs and engineering have been working together, and they have a sort of a way of working together, but now science is equally responsible for the launch. It is your launch, it is your product. And if your PM and science team is not involving you, I would say ask to be included. Get your own chair and sit and be proactive about in the decision making. I recommend creating a weekly feature crew or a feature pod that would include PM, engineering, science, UX, and documentation, and meet weekly to discuss project requirements, make collective decisions, review progress, look at what's blocking each other, and again, actively participate in defining the customer experience. You don't want engineering to be building something that will not work for your containers or your workflows. The next one is developing a common language. And when I spoke to a lot of our engineers and scientists who are on our team, and I said, hey, what's helped you the most? And hands down, everyone said it's developing a common language. And the onus is actually on you to educate PMs and engineering on machine learning or science concept because you are the expert. You will find that there are very less engineering and PMs out there who actually understand science concept. A very small example would be a feature. So for PM and engineering, a feature is a product capability, but in science, a feature is like a covariate that you would be training on. So one word, different definitions, and you might just have a lot of miscommunication. So you can look to have more, you can have office hours that you're setting up for your broader team or for a project that you're working on. I would say outside of the feature crew meeting, you should also have maybe a weekly or twice in a week more technical deep dives where you're discussing with your engineering team of what the inputs and outputs will be from one system to the other. Again, I'm going a little fast, but I will leave some time for question and answers. The next tip is for leveraging each other's strengths. Now, there are different functions or your feature crew, and they can help you. So working with PMs, they can guide you as to, you can discuss your research with them, and they can tell you what might get productionized and what has potential to get productionized, looking at customer pain points. But engineering will help you a lot. So you will learn how to write a clean coding interface. But if you think about it, when you're experimenting, you're so focused on accuracy. But when it comes to like serving thousands of customers at one time, you have to look at compute cost. You have to look at latency, how long customers are going to wait. And engineering will help you scale over here to balance cost, latency, and accuracy. For example, our engineering team helped our science team to load data faster in containers. They helped them to optimize batch inferences. They created automatic channels for pre-processing of data. And so work with your engineering team on what can they do to make you work faster. The next tip is around prioritization and product development. It's all about prioritization. Prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. And it'll just get really difficult for science team to do that because in a team, you will see you'll always have less science resources and more engineering resources. And that's what driving the pace of innovation or the pace of product build or product deployment. And so now science will have to be on a schedule. They'll have to provide timelines when they can meet a deadline. And so 2 tips I'll leave you over here in being creative is that when you're working with your product team in defining a user experience, maybe not everything has to be machine learning. Maybe it could be more heuristic based for phase 1 of that feature. And as you develop more phases, you can infuse machine learning. Or you could look at maybe there's some project that engineering can lead, take on a little bit of the science work, but science team can provide consultation. This way, science talent is working on the most difficult or the challenging portions, while engineering is leading a bit more for a faster pace of innovation. Second to last tip is to work on different data sets and test. So if I look at Amazon forecast, customers can bring in a wide variety of data sets for forecasting. I have seen data sets which are highly sparse. They have a lot of missing values. I've seen data sets which have high dimensionality. And the service has to work for all these type of data sets. And we learned the hard way. We made a mistake and we learned how it is important to test on different type of data sets. We had spent months on launching this new algorithm. The value proposition was that it's going to be 40% faster. We had tested it on 10s and 20s of customer data sets. And as soon as we launched, we heard so many complaints, so many user errors. We heard customers saying this is 40% slower, not faster. And we saw that they were testing a dummy data set that we provide on GitHub to test our service. And that dummy data set was very, very, very tiny. And we had missed testing our algorithms on that data set. We went back, we tested quickly, we optimized that algorithm, but it's so important for you to test your benchmark on different type of data sets. And getting data sets is going to be challenging. If you're working in ML as a service, you're working with a lot of enterprise customers. They don't always want to give you the data sets. There are a lot of privacy and confidentiality concerns. So work with your PM team in specifying to them what type of data you have, what you are looking for to complete your analysis. Ask your PM team to create contracts with customers so that you have perpetual use of that data for analysis. And my last tip is to remember who your customer is. So usually when you're building machine learning as a service, if you are building for ML experts or data science experts, you might provide them with a lot of more choice and flexibility because you want your ML service to be very extensive. You might also be academically correct. But if you're building a machine learning service for a non-machine learning practitioner, you might want to dumb down the science aspect. You want, they don't understand science that much, so you want to make science, you want to make those decisions for them. And you want to think about practicality more than being academically correct. And I'll give you an example, and this is a dilemma that I would like you to think about, is so in Amazon Forecast, we provide a whole probability distribution of forecast at every quantile. We also provide the mean forecast. Now, academically, we know that quantiles and mean are not the same thing, but for a customer, a mean is like a quantile. And so when we market and we position, we would talk about it together. But again, from a customer point of view, it's the same thing, but academically, we know it's not the same thing. So I know I rushed through it. I just want to leave you with that customers are looking to buy more services instead of building by themselves. This does mean that science talent is now going from, instead of an advisory or an analytical role, they're moving towards product development. And here are 7 tips that will help you work successfully with engineering and product management. I hope you'll discuss them with your teammates. I also frequently post open roles on my LinkedIn that I get through my network. So please follow me on LinkedIn. And I hope that this was useful. I will pause now to take some questions. I also want to learn, are there any tips that you've seen to be more helpful? If you've seen some more tips, I would love to learn about them as well.
Thank you so much, Namita. Does anyone have any questions for her? It takes a little bit to populate the question and answer, so just give it a minute. Thank you all for being patient with our technical problems too. No questions.
I will talk a little bit more then. One thing that I didn't mention on the roadmap prioritization is that I've seen some teams, they have 2 separate roadmaps. They'll have one roadmap for research, and they'll have one science roadmap for productionizing. That's another way that you can be creative with your prioritization to have headcount divided so that you are making sure you're working on both the fronts. But being a science talent in any team, you're going to be stretched very thin.
For sure. I'm still not seeing any questions here. I'm wondering if people went out when we had our things. Was there anything else that you would like to expand on in your deck that maybe you had to cut short so that at least in the video it'll be there for everyone?
Yeah, I think I covered most of it. I think I just cannot stress the point about machine learning as a service. It's getting really exciting, and the transition that I see science talent go in from an analytical to a product development. And it is a new muscle that they'll be building around thinking about the user experience. And so the tips that I have here, they come directly from our experiences of multiple PMs, engineering and science teams working together.
Great. I have one question. On the develop a common language, what are some tips for, when you first start a project that way, and then also when you have new people come in, like what type of tools and things do you use to get everyone on board with the same language?
Yeah, I think this is one that you'll have to try. It's a trial and error, but some things that we like to do in our teams is that we first, whoever's a new hire, we ask them to go meet with everyone, even meet with product management and engineering, attend a few customer meetings, so that they first start understanding the domain that are in. And then once we also learned that when science talent would leave, no one would be familiar with the code base. So we have been encouraging a lot of our teammates to document all their work, have a lot of comments in their code as well. We've had some science resources, we call them, an engineering pod as well, where they are working very closely with machine learning team. And these have become like the ML experts, but within the engineering team itself. So they also provide some sort of continuity when there are new team members coming, or they must have worked on more science projects. If they're new engineering team members also, they can first ping the science resource, learn more, and then maybe go to the engineering, then maybe go to the science experts to have a much better dialogue.
Gotcha. We did just have one question come in from Stephanie Lee. How do you balance serving a wide variety of customers versus customers with specialized needs or very domain-specific needs?
So when we look at customers with domain and specialized needs, you will see more and more in machine learning, one size doesn't fit all, and you will see a lot of specialized needs. I think the way I have looked at prioritizing the roadmap or catering to a roadmap is we also started with, hey, what is this one customer base that this product will drive the most value? And for our product, do we have the capabilities to provide value? So one is that, is there a market, and then are we positioned to serve that? So in Amazon forecast, let's say that's retail. Now, when we are launching products, we are definitely leading with retail, but we'll make sure that our implementation is such that it can also cater to a wide variety of forecasting use cases, for example, maybe for energy or telecom or cloud. But we might start with the retail customers for requirements. So that's one way that you can do so. I will say if you start catering to everyone, your go-to-market is not that strong. Or if you have a service like you have maybe a middle service where you are developing for ML scientists or ML researchers, then it might, again, I'll say in that you should really look at who your ML scientists are and start small, but your implementation can be that it can touch a wide variety of audience.